Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Tina Jha with News Tonight, where we get you the day's biggest news and updates from across India and the world. Our top story today, Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched a mega employment scheme in Uttar Pradesh to provide job opportunities in rural areas and to migrant workers who had to return to their home state due to the coronavirus pandemic. The Atmanirbhar Uttar Pradesh Rozgar Yojana aims to provide employment to 1.25 crore people near their homes.
Launching the scheme in Uttar Pradesh via video conferencing, the Prime Minister said the Uttar Pradesh government had done a commendable job in handling the coronavirus challenge and the migrant workers issue. He praised the Yogi Adityanath government for framing the unique scheme, Atmanirbhar Uttar Pradesh Rozgar Abhiyan, that combines the best of both centre and state initiatives. He said the UP government is working to turn the crisis into an opportunity and has set an example for other states.
मुझे पूरा विश्वास है कि योगी जी के नेतृत्व में जिस तरह आपदा को अवसर में बदला गया है, जिस तरह योगी जी और उनकी पूरी टीम जी जान से जुटे हैं, देश के अन्य राज्यों को भी इस योजना से बहुत कुछ सीखने को मिलेगा। भारत को आत्मनिर्भरता के रास्ते पर तेज गति से ले जाने का अभियान या फिर गरीब कल्याण रोजगार अभियान हो, उत्तर प्रदेश यहां भी बहुत आगे चल रहा है। गरीब कल्याण रोजगार अभियान के तहत श्रमिकों को आय के साधन बढ़ाने के लिए गांवों में अनेक प्रकार के कार्य शुरू करवाए जा रहे हैं। इसमें से करीब 60 लाख लोग को गांव के विकास में जुड़ी योजनाओं में तो करीब 40 लाख लोगों को छोटे उद्योग यानी एमएसएमईज में रोजगार दिया जा रहा है। इसके अलावा स्वरोजगार के लिए हजारों उद्यमियों को मुद्रा योजना के तहत करीब 10,000 करोड़ रुपए का ऋण आवंटित किया गया है।
Prime Minister Modi also highlighted the steps taken by the government to boost the economy. He said the employment scheme will greatly benefit Uttar Pradesh.
आत्मनिर्भर भारत अभियान के तहत जब पूरे देश में ऐसे स्थानीय उत्पादों को बढ़ावा देने के लिए उद्योगों के क्लस्टर बनाए जा रहे हैं, तब उत्तर प्रदेश को बहुत अधिक लाभ होगा। अब जो 3 कानून केंद्र सरकार लेकर आई है, उनसे किसानों को मंडी से बाहर भी अपनी उपज बेचने का अधिकार मिल गया है। यदि हमारा किसान जहां बेहतर दाम मिलेगा, वहीं पर किसान अपना सामान बेचेगा। दूसरा, अब किसान अगर चाहे तो अब बुआई के समय ही अपनी फसल का दाम तय कर सकता है।
The Prime Minister also interacted with villagers and migrant workers who returned to the state on board the Shramik special trains.
आपने आपत्ति को अवसर में पलट दिया। बस हमें आपसे ही सीखना है। सब सरकारों को यही सीखना है कि देखिए हमारे नगेंद्र जी ने आपत्ति को कैसे अवसर में पलटा।
Prime Minister Modi reiterated the importance of 2 gaz ki duri and face cover to battle the coronavirus pandemic. Speaking at the launch, Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath said the state is following the path shown by Prime Minister Modi to battle the pandemic and provide employment opportunities to the workforce.
30,47,000 कामगार और श्रमिकों का कुशलतापूर्वक स्किल मैपिंग करने का कार्य संपन्न हुआ। प्रदेश में आने वाले इन सभी कामगार और श्रमिकों में से ग्रामीण क्षेत्र में 26,12,000 और शहरी क्षेत्र में 1,63,000 कामगारों ने अब तक अपना क्वारंटीन पीरियड पूरा कर दिया है।
Nearly 30 lakh migrant workers have returned to Uttar Pradesh during the pandemic. 31 districts, including 5 aspirational districts, have over 25 lakh returnee migrant workers. Under the scheme, a loan amount of 5,900 crore rupees will be distributed to 2.4 lakh units. Now Vikram Singh's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Union Home Minister Amit Shah praised the Atmanirbhar Uttar Pradesh Rozgar Abhiyan launched by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, saying it will benefit crores of people.
Amit Shah said the scheme has been launched for the welfare and empowerment of workers of the state. The Home Minister added that various development works under schemes like PM Awas Yojana, PM Sadak Yojana, construction of toilets, expressway, etc. will be carried out under the scheme. The scheme is not only expected to improve the infrastructure of the villages, but also play an important role in the overall development of rural India.
Army Chief General Manoj Mukund Narvane on Friday briefed Defence Minister Rajnath Singh about the ground situation in Ladakh. The Army Chief concluded a 2-day visit to Ladakh on Thursday, where he visited the forward areas near the line of actual control and reviewed the operational preparedness. He also visited soldiers injured in the Galwan Valley clash with the Chinese troops. The Army Chief awarded commendation cards to 5 soldiers for displaying exemplary courage in dealing with the Chinese troops. General Narvane apprised the Defence Minister of the Army's combat preparedness in the forward areas in Ladakh. He also informed him about a meeting of senior Army commanders on the 22nd of June, in which both sides agreed to disengage at all friction points in eastern Ladakh. According to news reports citing military sources, China moved back its troops and vehicles to depth areas in Galwan Valley on Thursday. China has been amassing a large contingent of troops and armaments along the LAC in eastern Ladakh since early May. According to MEA spokesperson Anurag Srivastav, the Chinese side took action to hinder India's normal traditional patrolling pattern in the Galwan Valley area, while it sought to change the status quo in other areas of the western sector in mid-May. He said the conduct of the Chinese forces was in complete disregard of all mutually agreed norms between India and China. India has warned that continuation of the current situation at the border will only vitiate the atmosphere for the development of the relationship between the two neighbors. In a significant development, the United States has announced that it is reviewing the global deployment of its forces amid growing threats to some Asian countries by China.
The announcement was made by U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo at a video conference on Thursday. He said the Chinese threat to India and Southeast Asia is one of the reasons the U.S. is reducing its troop presence in Europe. Pompeo cited the Chinese Army's recent confrontation with Indian troops along the border in eastern Ladakh as one of the reasons behind the recalibration of global deployment of the country's forces. He informed that the U.S. will be reducing the number of its troops in Germany as part of the move.
This is going to dictate that in certain places there will be fewer American resources. There'll be other places. I just talked about the threat from the Chinese Communist Party. So now threats to India, threats to Vietnam, threats to Malaysia, Indonesia, South China Sea challenges, the Philippines. We're going to make sure we're postured appropriately to counter the PLA. We think that's the challenge of our time, and we're going to make sure we have resources in place to do that.
India isn't the only country that China is engaged with at the border. It has a history of getting into conflict with its neighboring countries, including Bhutan, Japan, Vietnam, Malaysia, and the Philippines. The Senkaku Islands and the Ryukyu Islands are at the midst of a dispute between China and Japan. Both countries are at loggerheads with this boundary issue. China also remains in dispute over territorial issues in the South China Sea with Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia. China and South Korea are also at loggerheads over parts of the East China Sea. On Thursday, in a bipartisan rebuke of China, the U.S. Senate unanimously approved a bill to impose sanctions on businesses and individuals, including the police, that undermine Hong Kong's autonomy. The bill targets Chinese Communist Party officials responsible for imposing a strict national security law on Hong Kong.
The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, on Friday opened its 36th summit with focus on COVID-19 pandemic and the situation in the South China Sea.
Chaired by Vietnam via video conference, the summit focused on the COVID-19 epidemic response, post-pandemic recovery and further cooperation with partners. Addressing the opening ceremony of the summit in Hanoi, Vietnamese Prime Minister Nguyen Xuan Phuc said that he expected the summit to be an opportunity to once again affirm the strong solidarity, political will and determination of ASEAN member countries to overcome difficulties to determinedly head forward. An ASEAN COVID-19 response fund will be established at high priority, which could be used to help member states purchase medical supplies and protective suits. Also, the South China Sea conflict took spotlight at the meeting. The draft communique at the meet said, "We underscored the importance of non-militarization and self-restraint in the conduct of all activities by claimants and all other states which could further complicate the situation and escalate tensions in the South China Sea." It is noteworthy that China has come under fire for what is being termed as aggressive actions in the disputed waters, even as countries scramble to deal with the viral outbreak. Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia and Brunei have pitted against China, who makes territorial claims in the region.
And news now about the COVID-19 situation in the country. With a single-day spike of over 17,000 cases, India's COVID-19 tally touched 4.9 lakh. Over 14,000 cases were witnessed for the 7th day in a row, even as recoveries showed a sharp jump. On the 1st of June, the count of total recovered patients stood at around 91,000, which has now crossed over 2,85,000.
The last 24 hours saw 407 COVID-19 related deaths and 17,296 new cases, the highest single-day spike so far. The total cases in India are nearing 5 lakh, with over 58.24% patients having recovered. At present, India has 1.89 active cases. 15,301 people have succumbed to the deadly disease. In the past 24 hours, more than 2,15,000 tests have been conducted, taking the total number of samples tested to over 77 lakh. The worst affected state, Maharashtra, has reported more than 1,47,000 cases and 6,931 fatalities. Over 4,800 new cases and 192 deaths were reported just in the last 24 hours. Mumbai reported 1,365 new cases, taking the state capital's tally close to 71,000. Among other states, Delhi has a total caseload of 73,780, Tamil Nadu 70,977 and Gujarat 29,520. Andhra Pradesh witnessed the highest single-day spike with 605 fresh coronavirus cases, pushing the state's case count to 11,489. The record spike in COVID-19 cases in Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh triggered Friday's biggest single-day jump in infections. Delhi has a total 2,429 deaths, Gujarat 1,753 and Tamil Nadu 911 so far. As cases increase, Assam announced a total lockdown in Guwahati from Monday for 2 weeks. The city has recorded over 700 new infections since the 15th of June. A 12-hour night curfew between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. will be observed across the state starting Friday. Universal screening of all residents for coronavirus symptoms is a new strategy to combat COVID-19. Door-to-door surveys have started in Mumbai and Delhi. Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, Odisha and Punjab will also implement this strategy in the coming days. Joint Secretary in the Health Ministry, Love Agarwal, led a central team to review measures in containment zones in Ahmedabad to contain the spread of COVID-19. The team will also visit Maharashtra and Telangana over the weekend. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
International passenger flights into and from the country will remain suspended till the 15th of July.
However, aviation regulator DGCA announced on Friday that some international scheduled services on selected routes may be permitted on a case-to-case basis.
All scheduled international passenger flights have been suspended in India since the 23rd of March due to the coronavirus pandemic. However, unscheduled international repatriation flights under the Vande Bharat mission have been operating since the 6th of May. Scheduled domestic passenger flights resumed services on the 25th of May after a gap of 2 months.
The coronavirus pandemic is getting worse in the United States of America, with a record rise in new cases and the number of hospitalizations.
On Thursday, the U.S. saw its biggest single-day spike in cases with 39,972 new infections and 2,425 deaths. At least 30 U.S. states have reported an increase in new coronavirus cases over the past week. In response, some states have put reopening plans on hold while imposing restrictions such as mandatory face masks in public. Texas temporarily halted further reopening of its economy as infections surged in the state. Oregon and Utah have also paused or slowed easing restrictions. California has recorded a 69% rise in COVID-19 cases in the past 2 days.
We've given an enormous amount of power, control, and authority to local government. But what we're now looking for is accountability at the local level. I just did a budget deal with the California legislature, $2.5 billion. In that budget, $2.5 billion is conditioned on counties meeting their criteria under the emergency declaration related to COVID-19.
On Friday, Paris's Orly Airport resumed commercial flight operations with new safety measures in place. Passengers can no longer enter the terminals with non-flying companions, while wearing masks is mandatory. On Thursday, thousands of people gathered at UK beaches, parks and other outdoor spaces defying social distancing norms. Local authorities in the Bournemouth area have initiated an emergency response, declaring it a major incident. Britain's social distancing rules are due to be relaxed only from July 4th. On Thursday, Spain passed a decree listing safety measures in a bid to avoid a new wave of COVID-19 infections. The order makes wearing face masks mandatory in closed spaces and in public where social distancing is not possible. On Friday, New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern visited Queenstown to launch the start of the 2020 snow season and encourage domestic tourism even as the country's international borders remain closed.
Coming off the ski field today, seeing the enthusiasm that's there amongst local residents and domestic tourists really does speak to the hope that is there, but there is no denying that this region, of course, with our borders being closed, will feel significant impacts from that.
On Friday, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison said that the country will continue to ease coronavirus restrictions despite a new cluster of cases being reported in the Victoria state. The state has launched free testing for its residents in an effort to contain the local outbreak. China reported 13 new coronavirus cases on Thursday, including 11 in Beijing and 2 in Shanghai. No new deaths related to the disease were reported on the day. Meanwhile, Egypt has begun producing Remdesivir and Favipiravir, 2 drugs used in the treatment of COVID-19 patients. On Thursday, Egypt's Eva Pharma said it has started delivering Remdesivir to quarantine hospitals. Further, it will make 5 lakh doses of the drug in a month to be sold locally. Worldwide, over 9.7 million people have been diagnosed with the virus and more than 4,92,300 people have lost their lives so far.
RBI Governor Shaktikant Das on Friday briefed the board members about the impact of the various monetary and regulatory measures taken by the central bank to deal with the COVID-19 crisis.
Besides other things, the RBI's Central Board discussed the current macroeconomic situation and evolving challenges being posed by the coronavirus pandemic. However, the RBI did not announce the one-time loan restructuring that has been a chorus of industry and banks alike. Expectations that the restructuring of loans will be discussed at the RBI board meet rose after Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said the government is talking to RBI to allow banks for a one-time restructuring of loans due to the distress caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. The RBI has already announced several relief measures to alleviate the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. This includes a 6-month moratorium the Apex Bank provided on loan repayments for all working capital and term loans.
The Supreme Court on Friday permitted the Centre and the CBSE to cancel the remaining board examinations due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
The Apex Court gave a go-ahead to the proposed scheme to award marks to students for the cancelled papers scheduled to be held in July. Appearing for the Centre and the CBSE, Solicitor General Tushar Mehta said that a special scheme for assessment has been devised. As per the assessment scheme, results of Class 10 and 12 students who have completed all their exams will be declared based on their performances in the exams. In the case of students who have appeared for more than 3 subjects, the average of marks obtained in the best 3 performing subjects will be awarded for subjects for which the exam was not held. For students who have appeared in exams in only 3 subjects, the average of marks obtained in best 2 performing subjects will be awarded for papers for which the exam was not held. The board also told the court that Class 12 students not happy with the marks to be accorded to the pending papers will also be given an option of taking the exam to be conducted when the atmosphere becomes conducive, while the re-exam option will not be available for Class 10. The ICSE board informed the court that it will issue a fresh notification with all the details of ICSE and ISC board exams for classes 10 and 12 within a week. The board may consider conducting an optional exam for class 10 as well. Both CBSE and ICSE told the top court that the results of the class 10 and 12 board exams can be declared by mid-July.
And in some weather news, 2 weeks ahead of its scheduled arrival on the 8th of July, the southwest monsoon has covered the entire country till Friday, the 26th of June.
On Thursday, more than 100 people were killed in lightning strikes in Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu expressed his grief over the lives lost in the incidents. Calling the news tragic, Prime Minister Modi also expressed his condolences. He said the state governments were engaged in urgent relief work. Meanwhile, driven by the low pressure over Bay of Bengal and cyclonic circulation over central India, the monsoon advanced further in Rajasthan, Haryana and Punjab. Assam had a second wave of floods which affected more than 2.2 lakh people in 13 districts. 15 people have died in rain-related incidents. NDRF and SDRF teams rescued over 5,000 people. 12,200 people have taken shelter in 53 relief camps.
The Charter of the United Nations turned 75 today. On this day in 1945, 50 countries signed the United Nations Charter in San Francisco, USA, and laid its foundation. Rebuilding trust for human rights, promoting social justice, and protecting the world from the scourge of war are among the founding principles of the United Nations.
On the 75th anniversary of the UN Charter, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the principles of the Charter are equally relevant today. He said that it is important to stand firmly in the face of the challenges the world faces at present, but it is equally important to solve problems. He said that apart from the coronavirus crisis, there are many others on which everyone needs to come together.
The pandemic has laid bare severe and systemic inequalities, and it has underscored the world's fragilities more generally, not just in the face of another health emergency, but also the climate crisis, lawlessness in cyberspace, and the risks of nuclear proliferation again. People are losing ever more trust in political establishments and institutions. In the face of these fragilities, world leaders need to be humble and to recognize the vital importance of unity and solidarity.
India, one of the founding members of the United Nations, was among the 50 countries that signed the UN Charter. The United Nations was established on 24th October 1945. The structure of the institution includes the General Assembly, the Security Council, the Economic Social Council and the Secretariat, as well as the international courts, and has more than 190 countries as its members. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
So that's it from us in this bulletin. Thank you for your time. Good night.
Thank you.